Emilia Rodriguez had never been the kind of woman who woke up in a stranger's bed. Yet here she was, tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than her rent, her head pounding with the kind of hangover that came from cheap champagne and expensive mistakes. The room around her was all clean lines and muted grays, the kind of minimalist luxury that whispered money without shouting it. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Chicago skyline like a painting she couldn't afford to own. She turned her head slowly, and her breath caught. He was still asleep beside her. Dark hair, almost black, fell across his forehead in a way that should have been illegal. His face was all sharp angles and stubble, as the kind of handsome that belonged on magazine covers, not in her catastrophically poor life choices. One arm was thrown above his head, the sheet barely covering his torso, and Emilia felt heat crawl up her neck as fragmented memories from last night crashed into her consciousness. The hotel bar. The wedding she'd crashed as a +1. Too much champagne. His laugh, deep and unexpected. The way he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the room. And then, this. Oh God. Emilia slid out of bed as carefully as a bomb technician, her bare feet silent on the cold hardwood. Her deep brown skin looked unfamiliar in the morning light streaming through those ridiculous windows, and she caught sight of herself in the full-length mirror. Hair a wild halo of dark curls. Last night's makeup smudged beneath her eyes, like wearing nothing but panic and regret. Her emerald green dress from last night lay in a pool on the floor beside his charcoal suit jacket. She grabbed it, wrestling the fabric over her hips with shaking hands, not bothering with the zipper. She needed to leave. Now. Before he woke up, and they had to have that conversation. The awkward morning after dance of pretending this meant nothing when her chest felt tight with something she didn't want to name. Emilia found her heels by the door, clutched her small gold purse, and cast one last look at the man in the bed. Killian something. He'd told her his name, hadn't he? In between the laughter and the way his hands had felt against her waist when they'd stumbled into this room. Killian with the British accent that made everything sound like poetry. Killian who'd listened to her ramble about her failed art gallery interview like it actually mattered. Killian who she would never, ever see again. She slipped out the door, and it clicked shut behind her with a finality that felt like an ending. 3 weeks later, Emilia stood in the bathroom of her cramped Chicago apartment, staring at 2 pink lines that were rewriting her entire future. Her hands trembled as she set the test on the sink, then picked it up again, as if the answer might change. The white stick felt impossibly heavy. The bathroom walls, painted a cheerful yellow she'd chosen when she still believed in optimism, seemed to close in around her. No, she'd been careful. They'd been careful. Hadn't they? The memory was hazy, softened by champagne and 3 weeks of trying to forget. But those 2 pink lines didn't care about hazy memories or champagne, or the fact that she didn't even know his last name. Emilia sank down onto the closed toilet seat, still gripping the test. Her orange cotton tank top suddenly felt too tight, her denim shorts too casual for the magnitude of this moment. She was 27, barely making rent as a freelance graphic designer, and approximately 100% unprepared to be someone's mother. Think, Emilia, think. She had no way to find him, no phone number, no last name, just Killian. And the vague memory of a hotel room that belonged to someone with money she'd never have. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Her best friend Maya, probably wondering why she'd canceled their brunch plans. Emilia couldn't answer. Not yet. Not until she figured out what she was going to do with a pregnancy that had come from one perfect, terrible, unforgettable night. She pressed her hand against her still flat stomach, and something shifted in her chest. Fear, yes, but underneath it, something else. Something that felt almost like... The knock on her apartment door made her jump. Emilia set the test down, wiped her eyes though she hadn't realized she was crying, and walked to the door in a daze. She wasn't expecting anyone. Maybe Maya had decided to ambush her with concern and croissants. She opened the door, and her entire world tilted sideways. Killian stood in her hallway, looking just as impossibly handsome as he had 3 weeks ago, but now wearing a navy blue button-down and dark jeans that fit him like a sin. His dark hair was slightly messy, his jaw tight, and his gray eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that stole her breath. Emilia Rodriguez? His accent wrapped around her name like velvet. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process how he was here, standing at her door, saying her full name like he'd known it all along. She gripped the doorframe. How did you find me? His jaw clenched. We need to talk. Behind her, on the bathroom counter, the pregnancy test sat waiting with its 2 pink lines. And Emilia realized with crystalline clarity that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. Emilia's apartment had never felt smaller. Killian stood in her living room. If you could call the tiny space between her thrift store couch and coffee table a living room, looking like he'd been photoshopped into the wrong picture. Everything about him screamed wealth. The way he carried himself, the expensive watch on his wrist, even the way he seemed uncomfortable with how comfortable her worn furniture was. She'd let him in because what else could she do? Send away the father of her unborn child? The man she'd been trying to forget for 3 weeks? Sit, she managed, gesturing to the couch. He sat, but perched on the edge like he might need to run. Emilia remained standing, arms crossed over her orange tank top, trying to hide the fact that her hands were shaking. How did you find me? She asked again. Killian ran a hand through his dark hair, and she hated that she remembered how soft it had felt between her fingers. The wedding. I went back to the couple, told them I was trying to find someone I'd met. They knew you were Maya Chen's +1. Maya gave me your address after I explained the situation. Explained what situation? Emilia's voice came out sharper than she intended. That you had a one-night stand and suddenly developed a conscience? His gray eyes flashed. That I left without saying goodbye and wanted to apologize. The words hung between them, heavy and unexpected. Emilia sank onto the...
If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more amazing love stories. All right, back to the story.
The opposite end of the couch, suddenly exhausted. Her small living room felt even more cramped now. The cream-colored walls she'd tried to brighten with cheap art prints. The plants she kept forgetting to water. The stack of graphic design portfolios on her coffee table that represented the career she was barely building. You could have called, she said quietly. I didn't have your number. You didn't ask for it. Neither did you. Touché. Silence stretched between them, the thick with everything they weren't saying. Emilia studied him properly now. Really looked at him in the unforgiving afternoon light. He was beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. But there was something else, too. Tension in his shoulders. Shadows under his eyes like he hadn't been sleeping well either. Why are you really here, Killian? She forced herself to say his name, and it tasted like the champagne they'd shared. People don't track down one-night stands 3 weeks later unless... It wasn't just a one-night stand. His voice was low, rough. Not for me. Emilia's breath caught. Behind her ribs, her heart did something stupid and dangerous. "Then what was it?" she whispered. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for the first time since he'd appeared at her door, he looked uncertain. Vulnerable. "I don't know, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. The way you laughed at my terrible jokes, how you talked about art like it was oxygen, the way you looked at me like I was just a person. Just a person." The phrase snagged on something in her mind, but before she could examine it, Killian continued. "I woke up that morning and you were gone. No note, no number, nothing." He met her eyes, and the raw honesty there made her stomach flip. "I thought maybe I'd imagined how good it felt, talking to you, being with you. But I hadn't. So I found you." Amelia opened her mouth, then closed it. What was she supposed to say? That she'd run because she was terrified of how much she'd wanted to stay? That she'd broken her own rules, no strangers, no risks, no complications, and ended up with the biggest complication of her life? Her hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach, and Killian's gaze followed the movement. His eyes widened slightly. "Emilia, I'm pregnant." The words tumbled out before she could stop them, raw and unfiltered. 3 weeks along. It's yours. I know that's probably the last thing you wanted to hear, and I'm not asking you for anything. I just... Marry me. Emilia froze. "What?" Killian stood abruptly, pacing to her small window that overlooked the alley behind her building. His navy button-down pulled tight across his shoulders as he gripped the windowsill. "Marry me. We'll do this properly. The baby deserves..." "Stop!" Amelia shot to her feet, anger flaring hot in her chest. "Are you insane? We don't even know each other. You can't just propose because I'm pregnant. This isn't the 1950s. I'm aware what century we're in." He turned, and there was something almost desperate in his expression. "But I'm also aware that I have responsibilities, resources. I can take care of you both. I don't need taking care of." Her voice shook. "I'm not some damsel in distress who needs rescuing by a guy with nice cheekbones and a savior complex. That's not what I..." He stopped, jaw clenching. "You're right. I'm handling this poorly." "You think?" They stared at each other across her cramped living room, and Amelia saw the exact moment his composure cracked. He looked lost, scared even, and somehow that made him more real than the confident man who'd charmed her at a wedding bar. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted quietly. "Any of this. I'm not good at people, at relationships, at..." He gestured helplessly between them. This. Something in Amelia's chest softened against her will. "Neither am I," she said. "Clearly, since I'm pregnant by a man whose last name I don't even know. Shelby." He offered a small, self-deprecating smile. "Killian Shelby. Emilia Rodriguez." She smiled back despite herself. "But you already knew that." "I did." He stepped closer, and Amelia's pulse kicked up. "Look, I know this is insane. I know we're strangers. But that baby..." His eyes dropped to her stomach again, and something fierce crossed his face. "That's my child. And I want to be there, not out of obligation, because I want to." Amelia wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he didn't know what he was asking for. But the truth was, she was terrified. Terrified of doing this alone. Terrified of failing. Terrified of wanting him to stay when she barely knew him. What exactly are you proposing?" she asked carefully. "And I don't mean marriage, I mean, what do you actually want from me?" Killian was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes searching hers. Honestly, I want to know you, the real you, not just the woman I met for one night. I want to figure out if what I felt then was real or just..." He trailed off. "Champagne and chemistry?" Amelia supplied. "Something like that." She should say no. Should tell him to leave, that she'd handle this herself, that she didn't need complications from a beautiful stranger who made her feel things she had no business feeling. But then he smiled, small and genuine, and she remembered why she'd broken all her rules in the first place. "Okay," she heard herself say. "We'll try. Get to know each other. Figure this out. But Killian?" "Yes? If you ever propose to me again without actually meaning it, I'm throwing you out that window." His laugh was surprised and warm, filling her small apartment like sunlight. Noted. And despite everything, the pregnancy, the impossibility, the sheer insanity of the situation, Amelia felt the smallest spark of hope. Maybe this disaster could become something else. Maybe. Dearest viewers, have you ever taken a chance on someone you barely knew? Let's know in the comments. The coffee shop on West Monroe was neutral territory. Amelia had suggested it for their first official getting-to-know-you meeting, 3 days after Killian had appeared at her door and turned her world inside out. She'd chosen a public place deliberately, somewhere she could escape if things got weird, somewhere that didn't carry the weight of hotel rooms or cramped apartments. She spotted him immediately. He sat at a corner table, looking thoroughly out of place among the college students and their MacBooks. Today, he wore a simple white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows and dark gray slacks. Still expensive. Still devastating. "You're early," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "So are you." His mouth quirked. "Does that say something about us? That we're both anxious and overcompensating?" Amelia set down her purse, a canvas tote she'd painted herself with abstract flowers. She'd dressed carefully, a soft lavender blouse that made her brown skin glow and her favorite high-waisted white jeans. Not trying too hard, but not trying. Killian's eyes tracked over her face like he was memorizing it. Like, "You look beautiful." Heat crept up her neck. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not? It's true." "Because we're supposed to be getting to know each other as people, not..." She waved vaguely between them. "Whatever we were that night. Can't we be both?" The question hung there, dangerous and tempting. Amelia was saved from answering by the barista calling her order. Decaf latte, because apparently caffeine was bad for the tiny human currently rearranging her entire life. When she returned, Killian was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "You ordered decaf." "Oh." She wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "Yeah, I looked it up. Pregnancy websites say limit caffeine, so I'm limiting." She paused. "Is that weird? That I'm already doing the research?" "No." His voice was soft. "It's not weird at all." They sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the coffee shop filling the space between them, the hiss of the espresso machine, the chatter of students, the indie music playing overhead. "So," Amelia started, because someone had to. 20 questions? Isn't that what people do? Ask each other their favorite colors and childhood pets?" Killian smiled. "All right, you first. What do you do for work?" His smile faltered slightly. "I'm in acquisitions, business development." It was vague enough to be suspicious, but Amelia let it slide. "Do you like it?" "I'm good at it." Not the same thing as liking it, she noted. "Your turn. The graphic design. Is that what you've always wanted to do?" Amelia traced the rim of her cup. "Not exactly. I wanted to be a painter. Fine art. But that doesn't pay bills, so I learned design. It's creative enough. Sometimes. You say that like you're trying to convince yourself. She looked up sharply, but there was no judgment in his face. Only curiosity. Maybe I am, she admitted. What about you? Is acquisitions what you always wanted? No. He leaned back, and something guarded slid over his features. It's what was expected. Expected by whom? But before she could ask, her phone buzzed violently on the table. Maya's name flashed across the screen, and Amelia's stomach dropped as she read the text preview. Maya, emergency, gallery called. They want to meet you. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Do not miss this. Oh my God. Amelia's hand flew to her mouth. What's wrong? Killian leaned forward, instantly alert. The gallery. Westbrook Gallery. And I interviewed with them 6 weeks ago for a curatorial assistant position. It's my dream job, but they rejected me. Except now, she looked up from her phone, dazed. Now they want to meet again. Someone must have dropped out, or I don't know, but this is huge. That's incredible. Killian's smile was genuine. You should be celebrating. I should be panicking. Amelia set her phone down with shaking hands. I'm pregnant. I can't take a job and then tell them I'm pregnant in the same breath. They'll think I lied. Or worse, they'll rescind the offer. They can't legally... I know what's legal and what's real, Killian. She pressed her fingers to her temples. This is the art world. Reputation is everything. If I take this job and then immediately go on maternity leave, I'll be labeled unreliable before I even start. Killian was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes thoughtful. Then he said something that changed everything. What if you didn't have to worry about that? Amelia lowered her hands. What do you mean? What if we got married, actually married, before you take the job? We are not doing this again. Hear me out. He leaned forward, intensity radiating off him. If you're married, you have stability, security. You can negotiate maternity leave from a position of strength, not desperation. And he hesitated. And if people ask about the timing, you're newlywed. It's expected. Amelia stared at him. You're insane. We've known each other for 3 days. Well, technically 3 weeks, but 3 conscious, sober days. I'm practical. You're proposing marriage. Again, that's not practical. That's delusional. Is it? Killian's voice dropped. Think about it, Amelia. You need stability for this job. I need... He paused, something flickering across his face. I need to do right by you and this baby. We could help each other. Marriage isn't a business arrangement. Sometimes it is. There was something almost bitter in his tone. And sometimes it becomes something more. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was crazy, absolutely insane. She barely knew him. Didn't know his family, his past, why he looked so haunted when he talked about expectations. But she also knew what it felt like to be broke and scared, to have dreams that felt just out of reach, to want something so badly you'd consider anything. This is a terrible idea, she said. Probably. People will think we're idiots. Let them. I don't even know your middle name. James. He smiled slightly. Killian James Shelby. See? We're learning. Despite herself, Amelia laughed. It came out shaky and a little hysterical. This is actually happening. You're actually asking me to marry you so I can take a job interview. I'm asking you to marry me so we can build something stable for our child. The job is just good timing. Convenient timing. That too. Amelia looked down at her decaf latte, at her painted tote bag, at the gallery text still glowing on her phone screen. She thought about her cramped apartment and her struggling freelance career, about the baby growing inside her and the beautiful stranger sitting across from her with his impossible proposal. She thought about the night they'd met, how easy it had been to talk to him, how safe she'd felt in his arms. And she thought about the fear in his eyes when he'd said, "I'm not good at people," a vulnerability that matched her own. "If we do this," she said slowly, meeting his gaze, "we do it right. No lying to each other. No secrets. We're partners in this, not strangers pretending." Something fierce and relieved flashed across Killian's face. Partners. And if it doesn't work, if we realize we've made a mistake, we end it like adults. No drama. We focus on co-parenting. Agreed. And you have to tell me everything. Your last name might be Shelby, but I need to know who Killian James Shelby actually is. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Everything? Everything that matters. For a moment, she thought he might back out, and might stand up and walk away from this insane plan they were building on coffee shop napkins and desperation. Instead, he extended his hand across the table. "Partners," he said again. Amelia looked at his hand, strong, elegant, trembling just slightly, and made a choice that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She took it. "Partners," she whispered, and sealed a deal that would bind them together in ways neither of them could predict. The courthouse wedding happened on a Thursday. Amelia had imagined her wedding day differently. Flowers, music, her mother crying happy tears in the front row. Not a sterile government building with fluorescent lighting and a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. But here she was, wearing a simple cream-colored midi dress she'd bought on sale. He holding a small bouquet of white roses Killian had surprised her with that morning. He stood beside her in a charcoal gray suit that fit him perfectly, his dark hair styled back, looking every inch the groom except for the tension in his jaw. "Do you, Killian James Shelby, take Amelia Maria Rodriguez to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Killian's gray eyes found hers, and for a moment, the courthouse disappeared. It was just them, standing on the edge of something terrifying and unknown. "I do," he said, and his voice didn't waver. When it was Amelia's turn, her heart hammered so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. This was insane. She was marrying a man she'd known for 2 weeks. A man who still hadn't told her everything, who kept his past locked up tight, who looked at her sometimes like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. But he'd also brought her roses, had held her hand in the waiting room when she'd started to panic, had whispered, "We don't have to do this," giving her an out even though she knew he wanted this, needed this as much as she did. "I do," she whispered. The ring he slid onto her finger was simple, elegant, a platinum band with a single diamond that caught the harsh courthouse lights. She'd protested when he'd shown it to her yesterday. Too expensive, too much. But he'd insisted, and now it sat on her hand like a promise she wasn't sure either of them could keep. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Killian leaned down, his hand gentle on her cheek, and kissed her softly. It was chaste, appropriate for a government building, but Amelia felt it everywhere. The memory of that night 3 weeks ago flared hot between them, and when they pulled apart, his eyes were dark. "Hello, wife," he murmured. "Hello, husband," she managed, and then she was laughing, nervous and a little wild, because this was her life now. They moved her into his apartment that weekend. Amelia had expected nice, maybe a 2-bedroom in a good neighborhood. What she got was a penthouse in the Gold Coast that made her cramped studio look like a shoebox. You're kidding, she breathed, standing in the middle of a living room that could fit 3 of her old apartments. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan. The kitchen had marble countertops and appliances she didn't know how to use. Everything was clean lines and expensive taste. You don't like it? Killian stood near the entrance, hands in the pockets of his dark jeans and navy Henley, watching her reaction carefully. No, it's beautiful. It's just... She turned in a slow circle. What exactly do you do in acquisitions that pays for this? Something shuddered in his expression. I'm good at my job. That's not an answer. It's the answer I have right now. There it was again. The wall he put up whenever she got too close to certain topics. Emilia wanted to push, but they'd been married for 3 days. She was still learning which battles to fight. Okay, she said softly. But Killian, eventually you're going to have to let me in. I know. He ran a hand through his dark hair, messing up the style. I will, just not yet. It stung, but she nodded. They were both carrying secrets, both figuring out how to be married strangers. Come on, he said, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Let me show you your studio. My what? He led her down a hallway to a room she hadn't noticed, a spare bedroom with perfect natural light and completely empty floors. I thought you could paint here, Killian said, leaning against the door frame. Set it up however you want. I'll have my assistant order whatever supplies you need. Emilia's throat tightened. You're giving me a studio? You said you wanted to be a painter, so paint. I can't afford... Emilia. He stepped closer, and his voice was gentle. We're married now. What's mine is yours. That includes rooms with good lighting and art supplies. She wanted to argue about independence and not being a charity case, but the longing was too strong. A studio, a real space to create. She hadn't had that since college. Thank you, she whispered. His smile was soft, real. You're welcome. The domesticity that followed was surreal. Killian left early for work, wherever that was, in whatever building held his mysterious acquisition job, and returned around 7. Emilia started her position at Westbrook Gallery, spending her days cataloging pieces and learning from the curator, Dr. Sarah Wills, who was brilliant and demanding and everything Emilia had hoped for. In the evenings, they cooked together. Or rather, Emilia cooked while Killian chopped vegetables with surprising precision and asked her about her day. Dr. Wills let me write the placard for the Rothko piece, Emilia said one night, stirring pasta sauce while wearing one of Killian's old Oxford shirts, soft white cotton that hung to her thighs, over black leggings. She'd started stealing his shirts. They were comfortable and smelled like him. That's incredible. Killian looked up from the cutting board, wearing a simple gray t-shirt and dark jeans, his hair falling into his eyes. What did you write? She recited it from memory, the words flowing naturally. When she finished, Killian was staring at her with an expression that made her breath catch. What? She asked. You light up when you talk about art, he said quietly. Your whole face changes. He trailed off, shaking his head. It's what? Beautiful. You're beautiful. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. Emilia turned back to the sauce, her pulse racing. You can't keep saying things like that. Still true, though. Killian, I know we're supposed to be taking this slow, getting to know each other. He set down the knife and moved closer until she could feel the heat of him behind her. But I'm not very good at pretending I don't want you. Emilia's hand trembled on the spoon. We agreed. Partners first. We figure out if this can work before we complicate it with... With what we both clearly want? She turned, and he was right there, close enough that she could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes, smell the cedar of his cologne. Her back pressed against the counter, trapped, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to run or pull him closer. "It's not that simple," she said, but her voice came out breathless. "Why not?" "Because I'm pregnant with your baby and living in your penthouse and working at a job that might not have happened without you. I need to know this is real, Killian. That you're not just here out of obligation or guilt or—" He kissed her. It wasn't gentle like the courthouse. It was desperate and hungry, and 3 weeks of wanting wrapped into one moment. His hands cupped her face, and Amelia's fingers tangled in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed that this was too fast, too much. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Does that feel like obligation?" he asked roughly. "No," she whispered, "but it doesn't tell me who you are either." Pain flickered across his face. He stepped back, putting distance between them, and Amelia immediately missed his warmth. "You're right," he said. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. I didn't say I didn't want it." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I said I need to know you first, really know you. Not just the parts you're willing to show me." Killian was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Then, "My father built an empire. Real estate, investments, acquisitions. When he died 2 years ago, I inherited everything. The company, the money, the expectations." His voice was flat, carefully controlled. "I don't just work in acquisitions, Amelia. I own the damn company." The words hung in the air like smoke. "You're—" Amelia's mind raced. "You're rich, not just nice apartment rich, actually rich." "Yes. How rich? Does it matter?" "Yes, because you let me think you were just some guy in business when you're apparently running a company? What else haven't you told me?" "That's it. That's the big secret." He laughed, but it was bitter. "I'm Killian Shelby, CEO of Shelby Holdings, worth more money than I'll ever spend, living in my father's shadow and failing at the one thing he wanted me to do, be him." The vulnerability in those last words cut through Amelia's anger. "What do you mean, failing?" she asked softly. Killian turned away, gripping the counter. He built this empire with ruthlessness and strategy. He didn't have time for anything else. Not my mother, not me, just the company. And now I'm supposed to be the same. Except I'm not. I'm not him, and I never will be, and everyone in that boardroom knows it. Amelia moved closer, her hand tentative on his back. Maybe that's not a bad thing. It is when his legacy is all I have left of him. You have more than that. She pressed her palm flat against his spine, feeling him tense, then slowly relax. You have choices, a life, this baby we're going to have. He turned, and his eyes were raw. Do you know why I came looking for you? After that night? You said you couldn't stop thinking about me. That's true. But it's also because you saw me as just Killian, not Shelby's son, not the CEO, just a man at a wedding who was terrible at small talk and surprisingly good at making you laugh. His hand came up to her face, thumb brushing her cheek. I haven't been just Killian in a very long time, and I didn't want to lose that. Amelia's heart cracked open. You won't. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll try. She covered his hand with hers. We both will. That's what partners do, right? He searched her face, and whatever he found there made him pull her close. Amelia went willingly, her arms around his waist, her head against his chest where she could hear his heartbeat, too fast, like hers. They stood like that in the kitchen, the pasta forgotten, the sauce starting to burn, not two broken people trying to figure out how to build something whole. "I'm still mad you didn't tell me," Amelia mumbled against his shirt. "That's fair. And we're still taking this slow. Also fair. But Killian? Yes?" She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "Thank you for telling me. For letting me see you." His smile was small and fragile and more honest than anything she'd seen from him yet. "Thank you for seeing me at all." And in that moment, standing in an expensive kitchen with burnt sauce and too many secrets, Amelia thought maybe, just maybe, this disaster of a marriage could become something real. The first doctor's appointment came on a Tuesday morning, 8 weeks into the pregnancy. Amelia sat in the waiting room of Dr. Patricia Wills's office, her knee bouncing nervously while she filled out paperwork. Killian sat beside her, looking distinctly out of place among the pregnant women and cheerful pastel walls. He wore a black sweater and dark slacks. He'd taken the morning off work, which apparently was a big deal for a CEO. "You didn't have to come," Amelia said quietly, checking another box on the form. "Yes, I did." His hand found hers, threading their fingers together. It had become natural over the past few weeks. The casual touches, the way they gravitated toward each other in their massive apartment. "This is our baby. I want to be here for all of it." Our baby. The word still sent a thrill through her chest. "Emilia Shelby?" a nurse called from the doorway. Hearing her new last name still felt surreal. Emilia stood, Killian rising with her, and they followed the nurse down a hallway into an examination room. "The doctor will be in shortly," the nurse said cheerfully. "We'll do an ultrasound today, so you'll get to see your little one." When the door closed, Amelia sat on the examination table, the paper crinkling beneath her. She wore a soft pink blouse and comfortable jeans, but suddenly felt exposed and vulnerable. Killian stood near the window, hands in his pockets, and she could see the tension in his shoulders. "Are you nervous?" she asked. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Terrified, actually." "Really? You hide it well?" "Years of practice." He moved closer, leaning against the examination table beside her. "Boardrooms teach you to bury fear, but this..." He gestured vaguely. "This is different. This is real." Amelia's hand found his. "It's okay to be scared." "Is it?" His gray eyes searched hers. "Because I keep thinking about all the ways I could fail at this. At being a father. My own father was..." He trailed off, jaw tightening. "Was what?" Killian was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful, measured. He was brilliant, ruthless, successful, and completely absent. I saw him maybe an hour a day if I was lucky. The rest of the time, he was building his empire. He looked down at their joined hands. "My mother left when I was 10. Said she couldn't compete with Shelby Holdings for his attention. And she was right." Emilia's heart ached. "Killian, I don't want to be him, Emilia. I don't want our child to grow up feeling like they're competing for my time. Like they're not enough to make me stay." His voice cracked slightly. "But what if it's inevitable? What if I'm so much like him that I can't help it?" "You're not him." Amelia squeezed his hand. "You're already different. You're here, aren't you? You took the morning off. You care about being present. That's not nothing. What if caring isn't enough? Then we figure it out together." She brought his hand to her still flat stomach. "That's what we promised, remember? Partners." He looked at her hand over his, and something raw and desperate crossed his face. "I'm so afraid of losing this, of losing you both. of somehow destroying the one good thing I've managed to stumble into. You won't lose us. The words came out fierce, certain. We're not going anywhere. Before he could respond, the door opened and Dr. Wills entered. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. Good morning, Amelia. Oscan, you must be the father? Killian Shelby. He shook her hand, and Amelia watched him slip back into his CEO mask, confident, controlled, the vulnerability tucked away. But she'd seen it, and that mattered. The examination was routine until Dr. Wills brought out the ultrasound machine. Amelia lay back, her pink blouse pushed up to expose her stomach, cold gel spreading across her skin. Killian stood beside her, his hand gripping hers so tightly it almost hurt. Let's see what we've got here, Dr. Wills murmured, moving the wand across Amelia's abdomen. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy black and white images that meant nothing to Amelia. Then Dr. Wills paused, adjusted something, and thump, 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 thump. There's the heartbeat, Dr. Wills said, smiling. Amelia's breath caught. At that sound, fast and strong and impossibly real, was their baby. Her hand flew to her mouth as tears pricked her eyes. She looked up at Killian and found him staring at the screen with an expression of absolute wonder. His gray eyes were wet, his jaw slack, and when he finally tore his gaze away to look at her, she saw everything he'd been holding back. Fear. Hope. Love. That's our baby, he whispered, voice rough. That's our baby, she repeated, tears spilling over. His free hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing away her tears, and in that moment, the examination room disappeared. It was just them, and that impossibly fast heartbeat, and the future taking shape between them. I'm going to be better, Killian said quietly, fiercely. I'm going to be the father they deserve, I swear it. I know you will. Amelia's voice shook. We both will. Dr. Wills cleared her throat gently, and they both startled, remembering she was there. Everything looks perfect. The baby is measuring right on track for 8 weeks. I'll print some pictures for you to take home. When they finally left the office, clutching ultrasound photos and appointment cards, Amelia felt like the world had shifted. The parking lot looked the same. Cars and asphalt and Chicago autumn sunshine. But everything felt different. Killian stopped beside his car, turning to face her. The vulnerability was back in his eyes, but this time he didn't hide it. Thank you, he said. For what? For letting me be here. For giving me a chance to be different than him. He pulled her close, and Amelia went willingly, wrapping her arms around his waist. I know I'm not easy. I know I keep things locked up. But I'm trying, Amelia. I swear I'm trying. I know. She pressed her face against his chest, breathing in the cedar scent of him. And for what it's worth, I think you're going to be an amazing father. His arms tightened around her. I don't deserve you. Lucky for you, I don't care about deserving. She pulled back to meet his eyes. I care about showing up. And you're showing up, Killian, that's what matters. They stood like that in the parking lot, holding each other while the ultrasound pictures crinkled between them, and Amelia felt the walls between them start to crumble. Not completely. Not yet. But enough to let the light in. That night, Amelia found Killian in what he called his study. A room she rarely entered because it felt too much like his private space. But the door was open, and she could see him sitting at his desk and staring at the ultrasound photo propped against his computer monitor. She knocked softly on the doorframe. "Can I come in?" He looked up, surprise crossing his face. "Of course. This is your home too." Amelia entered, taking in the room properly for the first time. Dark wood, leather furniture, shelves lined with business books and a few. She looked closer. Poetry collections? "You read poetry?" she asked, genuinely shocked. A faint smile crossed his lips. My one rebellion against my father. He thought it was useless, impractical. Killian stood, pulling a slim volume from the shelf. "Neruda, do you know him? I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees." Amelia quoted softly. His eyes widened. "You do know him. My mother used to read his poems to me when I was little. Before..." She trailed off. Before what? Amelia hadn't planned to share this. Hadn't planned to let him see this part of her. But fair was fair. He'd shown her his wounds that morning. "Before she got sick," she said quietly. "Breast cancer. I was 16. She fought for 2 years, but..." She wrapped her arms around herself. "She didn't make it." Killian set the book down and crossed to her immediately. "Amelia, I'm so sorry. It's been 11 years. You'd think it would hurt less." She laughed, but it came out wet. "But sometimes I'll see something, a painting, a sunset, a poem, and I think, Mom would love this. And then I remember she's not here to tell." "Is that why you paint?" he asked gently. "Partly. She was the one who put a brush in my hand when I was 5. Said art was how we make sense of the beautiful and the terrible." Amelia looked up at him. "I think that's why I've been so scared to really commit to it. Because if I fail, if I'm not good enough, it feels like I'm failing her too." "You could never fail her." Killian's hands cupped her face, tilting it up to meet his eyes. "From what you've told me, she'd be so proud of you. The job at the gallery, your talent, the way you're already so fierce about protecting this baby." "You think?" "I know." He pressed his forehead to hers. "And I'm honored you told me about her." They stood like that in his study, sharing the weight of their pasts, and Amelia realized something crucial. She was falling for him. Not the CEO, not the man with the perfect penthouse, but Killian, the one who read poetry in secret and was terrified of becoming his father, and the one who held her like she was precious and looked at ultrasound photos like they held the secrets of the universe. "Killian," she whispered. "Yes? I'm glad it was you, that night. I'm glad it was you I met." His breath hitched. "Even with all the complications?" "Especially with the complications." She smiled. "Because they led us here." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Not the desperate kiss from the kitchen, but something deeper. Something that felt like the beginning of forever. When they pulled apart, Killian rested his hand on her stomach, and Amelia covered it with hers. "We're going to be okay," he said, and it sounded like a vow. "We're going to be okay," she agreed. And for the first time since those 2 pink lines had appeared, Amelia actually believed it. But the article appeared 3 months into their marriage. Amelia was at Westbrook Gallery, helping Dr. Wills prepare for an upcoming exhibition, when her phone started buzzing incessantly. Text after text from numbers she didn't recognize. Her social media notifications exploded. She pulled out her phone, frowning at the screen, and her stomach dropped. Secret billionaire's shotgun wedding. Killian Shelby's mysterious bride. The headline was from Chicago's most notorious gossip site, and below it was a photo. Her and Killian leaving the courthouse 3 months ago. She looked young and uncertain in her cream dress. He looked like exactly what he was. A man worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The article was worse than the headline. Sources close to Shelby Holdings confirm that CEO Killian Shelby, 32, had married unknown graphic designer Emilia Rodriguez, 27, in a quiet courthouse ceremony this past summer. While the couple has kept their relationship private, insiders suggest the hasty marriage may have been prompted by a pregnancy. Rodriguez, who has no social media presence and comes from modest means, began working at the prestigious Westbrook Gallery shortly after the wedding, leading some to question whether her position was earned or purchased. The words blurred as Emilia's hands started shaking. Her phone buzzed again, this time a call from an unknown number. She declined it. Another call. Decline. Another. Emilia? Dr. Wills appeared in the doorway of the storage room, her expression concerned. Are you all right? You look pale. Emilia couldn't finish the sentence. The phone kept buzzing. The notifications kept coming. Comments from strangers dissecting her life, her marriage, her worth. Gold digger, social climber, knocked herself up to trap a rich man. Emilia? Dr. Wills took the phone gently from her hands and glanced at the screen. Her expression tightened. Oh no. Did you know? Emilia's voice came out small. That Killian is... I knew the Shelby name, yes. Dr. Wills set the phone face down on the desk. But I hired you because your portfolio was exceptional and your passion for art was genuine, not because of your husband. But people will think what they want regardless of the truth. Dr. Wills's voice was firm. You've been here for 3 months, Emilia. You've proven yourself. Don't let strangers with internet access take that away from you. But it was already taken. Emilia could feel it crumbling. The legitimacy she'd worked so hard to build. The identity separate from Killian's wealth and name. Now she was just the mysterious bride. The woman who'd trapped a billionaire. She made it home before the tears came. The penthouse felt like a museum when she entered. Beautiful and cold and not hers. It had never really been hers, had it? Just another borrowed piece of Killian's world that she'd foolishly started to believe belonged to her too. Emilia sank onto the couch, still wearing her burgundy sweater dress and black tights, and stared at her phone. The article had been shared thousands of times. Her name was trending. Complete strangers were debating her character, her motives, her worth. She was 14 weeks pregnant now, just starting to show. Her hand went to the small curve of her belly, the only thing that felt real and solid in a world that had suddenly tilted sideways.